Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today we're doing a quick repair job. We got a video that I think a lot of you are going to find helpful here because this is a common issue and I get a lot of questions about it. Let me start by saying this is not my specialty, okay? I do a lot of full paint jobs, I do kit builds, stuff like that. I don't do a lot of finish repair. So I'm going to show you how I intend to do this. I think it's going to work relatively well, but it is not going to be perfect. And the guy who owns this guitar isn't expecting it to be perfect. So take what I say here with a grain of salt. I think you'll find this helpful, but it may not be the best way to do it because I just may not know the best way to do it. So we've got a really kind of aggressive sparkle poly finish, metal flake poly on this guitar. It's a beautiful Fender, really nice neck and everything. The guy who owns it, fantastic guitar player, much better than me. Aren't you all though, right? But anyway, it's got a chunk missing. So he dropped it in the case, in a hard case actually, from not a very significant height, and just got very unlucky and a chunk popped out of the finish of the poly. And with poly finishes, they tend to flake. They flake off. So if you're not careful, if you don't do something about this, it can get worse. The first thing that he did was basically color it in with a marker. So yeah, it got rid of the white wood look underneath, but I can tell you that this is down to the wood at this chunk. You're right through the finish. So here's what we're going to do. Hardest part of this is going to be getting something that's close to the sparkle. We're going to use some inexpensive glitter, and we're going to sand out what's in here, but try not to broaden the chip. Normally, if you're going to blend something, you want to sand the edges so that there's no ridge around it, so that you don't end up with a ridge in your clear when you spot blend. But we're actually going to be using medium Star Bond super glue. This stuff dries really nice and clear. And hard, and you can polish it after. But the main thing here is I want that strong adhesive capability. I am worried that it's going to make the glitter swim, so that's something I need to be careful of. I don't know if there's anything I can do about it, but anyway, I'm going to try. But what I want is something with some good bonding power like this to really seal this up and hold everything in place, because again, if this doesn't get dealt with, it is likely to get worse. And that's the main thing we're trying to avoid. So when he came to me, he said, do what you can. Aesthetically, not all that concerned. He's already tried to glue it. There are some problems here that I'm going to have to deal with. But the main thing is, let's keep this from getting worse. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by taking some 220 grit and just carefully sanding out that spot. Then I'm going to tape around it to avoid having glue go everywhere. We've already got a bit of that issue from the attempted repair from before, which we'll deal with after. We're going to carefully try and put a little bit of this in there, and then we're going to drop fill it with the glue. And then we're just going to let it dry. Going to let it dry, just laying like this for, it shouldn't take long. It's super glue, but I'm busy. So I'm going to let it dry probably for a couple days, and then I'll come back, try and scrape everything back, sand smooth, and see if we can polish this out. And one, protect it, and two, make it less visible. So let's get to work. Okay, so I'm just going to carefully bend a piece of 220 grit. And this may deepen this even a little bit, but that's fine because we're going to fill it after. Now, I'm not taping around it for the paint part because I am going to have to sand this whole area smooth after, or relatively smooth. There's not a whole lot I can do with that. This is lifting a touch. We're just going to do our best here, okay? So this is not the pursuit of perfection. So if you are looking for a perfect repair, a beautiful spot blend, I'm sorry, this won't be it, but we'll do what we can. All right, so that is sanded out relatively well. Got rid of some of that marker. Don't even talk to me about this guard, okay? I don't want to go there. These plastic mirror guards are cool, but they scratch just by looking at them. And this guitar's got some vintage stuff on it, so I don't know if it's scratched deliberately or not, but it's scratched. Now what I'm doing is cleaning this out, and I'm just using wax and grease remover to do that, okay? Nothing crazy. If I wanted to take off this super glue, I would basically have to use acetone, and acetone is aggressive, so it could conceivably cause some problems for the finish. I might give it a little touch of acetone there on this side because there's a bunch of glue. Okay, well, this is embarrassing. I just did a bunch of stuff and I didn't manage to catch it on film. So here's the deal. This is poly. I confirmed that beforehand. All right, it's not lacquer, and that is important because I did manage to get most of the glue and marker off of here. And how I did that was using some lacquer thinner. And if I had done that on lacquer, it would have made a huge mess. It would have removed the original finish. It would have, yeah, just don't do that. But because I was able to confirm that this was poly, I didn't have to worry about it. This stuff is solvent proof. So I used some lacquer on a Q-tip, lacquer thinner rather, on a Q-tip, and I got rid of all that marker. All that Sharpie came out, and most of the prior super glue came off. So success there. I just rubbed that real well. Then because it's lacquer thinner, it dried real quick, so I was able to move on. And what I moved on to was adding my sparkle. Now this actually ended up being a pretty close match. I don't have a great way to place this, so what I did is I used a popsicle stick, got a very little bit on here, and then just got over top of the crack carefully and just tapped it into place. All right, so just kind of did that with it right on there. And now it's in there. It's in there, and it looks awesome. Like, it's not quite as light. It's a slightly darker sparkle, but it's a similar size. And overall, I'm ecstatic with how this looks. The only thing that's upsetting me is that I didn't manage to film it going in there correctly. But let's give you a closer look, right? Like, that is pretty convincing. I'm really happy with that. It was very obvious before, and now it isn't. This is the nerve-wracking part, though. Like, that was tough. That was a little bit challenging to get in place. I wish, again, that I had a better way to do it, but I don't. Maybe a small straw. I could have scooped a little with a small straw and kind of shuffled it in there. That would have been good. I'm just thinking of it now, so it doesn't help me at all. Now I got to try and seal this, all right? And I don't want to spray it. And I was going to tape around it, but I'm just going to use this Star Bond has like these really small wicking caps, so I'm just going to use that and try and put just a little bit on and get it to stay. And once I've done that, then I can flood it, fill it in, and hope that that's going to be sufficient. So I'm going to put a piece of tape here because I might shoot some accelerator at my first set, but you guys can watch me do that now. Just a quick interruption here for a sponsorship message. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I occasionally have videos that are sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform that has tutorial videos a lot like YouTube, but with some quality control and some very specific stuff that they specialize in. So not just anybody can make a Skillshare video, and they are generally pretty high quality. In particular, I'm looking at guitar tutorials for myself because I've kind of tried to make a commitment here that I am going to learn how to play the guitar a little bit better so I can do some better demos. And the one that I'm working on right now is right here, Mike Boyd Guitar Fundamentals. Pretty good. I'm going to keep working my way through it. I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it, but yeah, hopefully I'll be able to play the guitar a little better by the time the next one rolls around. They have tons of stuff on here though. Fine art, video making, business and entrepreneurship, all sorts of stuff that I think a lot of you guys will find useful, including video making for those of you who have gotten into having a YouTube channel or something like that, particularly with the Great Guitar Build-Off coming to a close here. I know a lot of people have used this as an opportunity to kind of start up a channel, and this is a good source for that kind of thing. So we're about to head back into the video and make this fretboard, but just before we do, one last thing I'll mention. The first 1,000 people that click the link in the description for Skillshare get a 1-month free membership. So you get 1 month to kind of try this out and see if you like it. Alright, let's get back to the video. Now the guy that I'm doing this job for is a friend of mine. I know I probably said this in a recent video. I'm not taking any more commission work. Frankly, it drives me nuts. But anyway, this guy's a good friend of mine, and he taught me a bunch of stuff about guitar, and I am going to, now that I'm doing this for him, I'm going to force him to teach me how to wire guitars properly, because I can follow a diagram, but he does some really cool creative stuff. He is also an excellent guitar player, and he's got a band. I don't know if they've got videos, but if they do, I'll place a link in the description to them. All right. Let's see here. So I'm using the medium viscosity for this. All right, Star Bond has their thin, which is good for filling in small cracks. It would be a reasonable choice in this context, and I have some here, but I want to fill in a fairly thick area. And I don't want it to being too flowy. That's one of the main things. I mean, I almost considered using the thick, but the thick won't flow out quite as much as I want it to into this extended crack. The medium should. And the thin will swim too much and will probably cause my glitter to go everywhere. So hopefully, this is a dad joke, hopefully this medium is a happy medium and allows me to achieve what I'm trying to here. Maybe I'll edit that joke out. We'll see. I am going to use one of these small wicking tops, like I said, because I think that being able to place it on there as little as possible, as gently as possible, is going to help avoid the big issue that I'm worried about. And then we'll just let it dry. I'm making this sound easier than it probably will be. Let's see. Is that built up too much? Maybe. Well, whatever. This is all I can do. If I try and move too much of that out of the way, like I think it might be a little too much glitter, but if I try and move it out of the way, I'm just going to end up back at raw wood. That's it. Stay there. Okay, I built that up considerably higher than necessary, and that way I can just scrape it back after, sand it smooth, and polish, hopefully, without making a huge mess. Ideally, that's how this works. All right, let's leave well enough alone. I'm going to throw out this wicking cap because it's going to harden and be useless to me. This I'm going to carefully blow out. I've had a lot of people comment about the safety aspects of that I need to be concerned about, so be careful. You don't want glue going into your eyes. It's got acetone in it and stuff. So generally just stay away from it. Apparently people have had that happen. I don't know what else to tell you. All right, this is going to dry now for, like I said, probably a couple days, but realistically it only needs to be a number of minutes. I'm not going to bother hitting it with the accelerator. Usually, or on some glues, the accelerator actually causes it to turn white. With Starbond, you don't have to worry about that. I don't know how they did it, but Starbond's a great product. I have some in the Amazon link in the description, I think, and I've also got a link directly to their stuff that I may or may not put there. I'm trying to work with them on getting a discount code activated again. I think I do have a discount code, actually. So let me put that in the description because Starbond is awesome stuff. And yeah, we'll come back and work on this shortly. So that'll still be in this video. I don't know why I'm making this sound like an ending. See you in a bit. And we're back, but this time in voiceover. So this has had some time to dry now, probably much longer than it needed. Again, I've just been busy, and I'm scraping it flat. You can sand it flat, but I find that sanding tends to lower the areas around it, so I'm using a razor blade and I'm just trying to keep it nice and level. And you can see I've actually removed the corner of the blade. That's the corner that I've got toward the guitar, and that is so that I don't leave any gouges, so I don't scratch the guitar up inadvertently with the corner of the blade. So I'm kind of trying to get that corner of the guitar a little bit. I'm rounding over it just a touch, but mostly I'm just trying to hold the blade nice and flat. And you can see I'm dragging it. I'm not pushing it. So whichever way I'm going, I'm dragging it, meaning I don't put the blade first. I pull the blade along. It's a scraping motion, not a cutting motion. That's the important part. Otherwise, you'll gouge into your finish. Next up, we're sanding to kind of try and get this nice and smooth so that we can get to the polishing stage. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this in this video. A little bit, but not a ton. Suffice it to say that you need to get it nice and smooth if you're going to polish it. And you guys have probably, if you've been following my channel, you've largely seen me do this kind of thing. You've seen me color sand and polish. For this, I'm starting at 400 grit because I'm still sanding down a ridge with this glue that's on here. I'm not sanding it all the way down, unfortunately, and I'll explain why in a second, but I do 400 grit, then 800 grit, and then I'm going to move up to 1500 grit, and finally I'm going to give it just a little quick swipe, basically with 4000 to make it easier to polish because I'm polishing by hand so that I don't make a big mess on this, fully assembled guitar. Now, while you watch me sand, let me explain why I'm not getting it all the way down to perfectly smooth. There are a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure that I've got, that adhesion, I've got that fully filled, and I'd rather have a little ridge there that's not going to be very visible as opposed to sanding too far and ruining the integrity of it. The main purpose of this repair is still to avoid having more of that paint come off. Before I continue, the next thing that I'm doing here is cleaning it with wax and grease remover. Then I'm going to move on to polishing it. The other reason that I didn't sand it all the way back is the glitter did float, like I was worried about. It floated up into the glue, which is no surprise. I mentioned it before. I figured it would happen. I wanted to make sure that it didn't float all over the place and leave an ugly mess, which I did. I didn't have that problem. But the problem that I did have is as you sand a metallic or a sparkle like this, the blue in this case comes off and you end up with this silver. So I had to be careful about how far down I went. I didn't want to go all the way back or I would have ended up just with a big kind of silver glittery patch. So we managed to avoid that. In terms of the polish, I started off with a compound there that was Northern Liquid Ice. You've all seen me use it before, but something like a Meguiar's Ultimate compound would work just fine, and then you could do a Meguiar's Ultimate polish. And what I'm finishing with here is a Meguiar's Scratch X 2.0, I believe. So you could also finish with that if you were doing the Meguiar's system. It works fine. I'm going to end up with a nice polish here, even though I'm not using a foam pad and all of that. Obviously, a shop rag isn't the perfect way to go about it, but super glue is pretty hard, so this works fine. I don't really have to worry about doing any damage to it, and it ends up with a pretty decent gloss on it, which is what we need. We need it to match as well as possible without ruining any of the integrity. And that is basically it, guys. I'm going to clean this off with some wax and grease remover again, and let's give you a look at what it looks like. The sparkle is a little darker, so you can see that if you look closely. And yes, there is a little bit of a ridge from the glue, but it's kind of got a matching sheen to it, pretty close. So that worked out. I managed to get most of that old glue with the dark Sharpie in it off of there, and we're pretty much good to go. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already so you can see the rest of my projects and stuff. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a good one, and I will see you next time.